Hey everybody, my name's Sam Mullinax, and I'm a third year MD MPH student, originally from San Diego, California. And to begin our discussion of some of the similarities and differences between the bubonic plague and COVID-19, I'd say one of the chief similarities is that both of them are zoonotic in origin. Obviously, the origin of the bubonic plague is perhaps more straightforward in that we understand that it comes from fleas that had the mice as a host organism. And whereas in COVID-19, there is some question if it was not partially engineered or subject to a lab leak or something of that nature. However, we know that both viruses do have animal hosts and can be ultimately spread to humans. And similarly, both were transmitted around the world via travel and commerce and just many of the ways that people move around the world and do business and live their lives and across borders. In that way, a potential issue that came up in both cases was the issue of border patrol and border vetting and controlling different access points. Both of these diseases have a little bit of a longer incubation period, so it can be uh, a few days or more, perhaps, before you know that an individual is sick. Obviously, in the case of the bubonic plague, it become more apparent when they have buboes and they get extremely sick. However, in the case of COVID, people can be asymptomatic even for the entire course of the disease, while this is still even being transmissible. So that became very difficult on that point to do contact tracing and try to pinpoint exactly what the source was of an potential outbreak. So I'd say in both cases, the way that epidemiology was used in the case of COVID-19 is that we tried to implement ways of tracing who interacted with who. This might have been possible in a more rudimentary fashion, just based on how small certain communities were back in medieval times when the bubonic plague was really rampaging through those communities and allowed people just through word of mouth or even some sort of written roster, if anybody had the ability to read or write in those areas, trying to track who went where and who did what. Additionally, we don't really think of that age as being a great mathematical era. However, there were individuals who had some mathematical training and just to do some basic calculations, exponents and things of that nature would certainly have been understood by a scholar class at that time. And whatever royal principality governed a specific area could try to estimate the trajectory of the bubonic plague based on some of their observed data. Obviously, they didn't have quite the same ability to perform physical mitigation like we did with certain contact precautions and so forth. And obviously, there were not very good remedies that epidemiology could really use to try to see if the incidence would eventually be lowered and thereby reducing the prevalence of the disease. However, some of the principles that we use today could still, in a more simple fashion, perhaps have slowed the spread of the bubonic plague all those years ago.